What if the world was not ruled by wisdom, but by noise? What if the victors were not the most capable, but the most confident, not the most skilled, but the most shameless? What if, in every corner of life, from politics to business to culture, you discovered that loudness often beats intelligence, that fools unburdened by self-doubt march past the careful and the competent? This is no mere speculation, it is the paradox we live in, the rise of the overconfident incompetent. Philosophers have wrestled with this truth for centuries. Plato warned in The Republic that democracy without virtue descends into rule by demagogues, those who flatter the masses with empty promises. Marcus Aurelius sighed that the opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject. Nietzsche observed that history is often made not by the wise but by the willful, those who impose their vision with a mixture of arrogance and audacity. But long before Plato, Marcus or Nietzsche, the book of Proverbs already lamented, "A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion." Proverbs 18:2. The warning is ancient, yet every era ignores it. Consider our modern moment. In politics, those who shout the loudest dominate the airwaves. In social media, misinformation often spreads faster than truth because confidence, not accuracy, captures attention. In boardrooms, the employee who speaks first with certainty is more likely to be promoted than the quiet thinker who hesitates to speak until the facts are clear. The Dunning-Kruger effect, named after psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger, explains why. Incompetence robs people not only of skill, but also of the ability to recognize their own lack. The less they know, the more certain they feel. The truly skilled, meanwhile, are cursed with doubt. They know enough to see the complexity. This is why, time and again, history rewards the bold, not the wise. Think of Napoleon Bonaparte, who rose from obscurity with sheer confidence and audacity, convincing entire nations that he was destined to rule Europe. Or Elizabeth Holmes, who built a multi-billion-dollar empire on nothing but charisma, black turtlenecks, and bold claims about blood-testing technology that never worked. Or, closer to politics, leaders who thrive not because their policies are sound, but because they project certainty in uncertain times. This is the machine we live in, a Dunning-Kruger machine, where incentives reward arrogance and humility is mistaken for weakness. And yet, this machine is not merely political or economic. It is deeply personal. Perhaps you've experienced it in your own life. A workplace meeting where the loudest voice carried the day, even though it was wrong. A friend's circle where the overconfident dominated decisions while the thoughtful were ignored. A social media thread where the most outrageous comments gathered the most likes, while nuance died in silence. The paradox is cruel. The more careful you are with truth, the more invisible you become. The more reckless someone is with false certainty, the more influence they gain. Philosophy offers us metaphors for this. Plato's allegory of the cave shows people chained in darkness, mistaking shadows for truth. When one philosopher escapes and returns to tell them of the world outside, they mock him, preferring the confident lies of those who keep them entertained. Fast forward to today, and little has changed. False confidence sells better than inconvenient wisdom. But this is not just a human flaw, it is also an evolutionary trick. In the tribal past, confidence often meant survival. In moments of chaos, people followed the person who seemed sure, not the one who hesitated. Better to follow a bold hunter into danger than wait for a cautious thinker who weighed every possibility. That instinct lingers, shaping elections, markets, and even personal relationships. This is why idiots keep winning. They fit the survival code of the crowd. They offer certainty where the wise offer nuance. And in a noisy world, certainty is magnetic, yet here lies the danger. A society that rewards noise over wisdom eventually collapses under the weight of its own illusions. Rome fell not just to invaders but to its own complacency and corruption. Financial bubbles burst when bold speculators convince the masses that markets will only go up. Democracies decay when citizens reward performance over competence. And so the question is not whether idiots will keep winning. They will. The deeper question is, how do we survive and even thrive in such a world without losing ourselves? That is the journey we embark on in this series. We will dissect the Dunning-Kruger effect, trace how it infects our politics, economies and daily lives, and confront the painful truth: overconfidence is often rewarded while humility is punished. But we will also seek strategies from philosophy and psychology to endure, to navigate a world where noise beats truth, where the loud overshadow the wise, and where self-mastery becomes the only shield against chaos. Because if we fail to understand this machine, we will forever be its prey. But if we do, we may yet learn how to walk through the noise without being consumed by it. To understand why the overconfident often rise, we must begin with a strange truth about the human mind. Those who know the least are often the most certain, while those who know the most are often riddled with doubt. This paradox was formally described in 1999 by two psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger, who observed that people with the lowest competence consistently overestimated their abilities, while those with the highest competence underestimated theirs. The incompetent not only fail at tasks, they fail to recognize their own failure. In contrast, the skilled, precisely because they grasp the complexity, are keenly aware of what they don't know. Philosophers had already seen this centuries earlier. Socrates, in Plato's Apology, famously declared, "I know that I know nothing." This was not ignorance but wisdom, the humility that comes from deep understanding. Contrast this with the brash certainty of politicians, influencers and salesmen throughout history, who act as though they hold the keys to ultimate truth. But what happens when the brash outnumber the humble? You get the Dunning-Kruger machine. A system that rewards overconfidence while penalizing self-awareness. Take the story of Cato the Younger and Julius Caesar in ancient Rome. Cato, a Stoic philosopher and senator, was renowned for his integrity and his refusal to flatter the mob. He sought truth, even when it was unpopular. Caesar, on the other hand, knew how to manipulate appearances. He threw games, paraded his military victories, and projected supreme confidence. The Roman people did not choose the wise Stoic. They chose the dazzling populace. History remembers Cato as virtuous, but it was Caesar who took power. Fast forward 2 millennia and the pattern repeats. In 2016, entire nations watched as polished experts predicted political outcomes, while charismatic outsiders, often dismissed as clowns, rose to victory. Whether in America, Europe or Africa, a recurring truth emerged. The person who projected certainty won more hearts than the one who carefully explained nuance. The Dunning-Kruger effect feeds into what psychologists call the illusion of superiority, the belief that one is above average, even when one is not. Studies consistently show that the majority of people rate themselves as better than average, drivers, leaders, or decision-makers. This statistical impossibility reveals our tendency to inflate our own competence. Consider the 2008 financial crisis. Bankers and investors convinced themselves they had mastered risk. They packaged bad loans as valuable assets and projected supreme confidence to the public. In reality, they were playing with fire they did not understand. Their overconfidence crashed economies, costing millions their jobs and homes. Yet in the years leading up to the collapse, who was rewarded? Not the cautious analysts who warned of danger, but the bold risk-takers who promised endless growth. The machine had rewarded confidence until reality caught up. Why does confidence work so well? Because humans are wired to respond to it. In evolutionary terms, certainty signaled leadership. A tribe in crisis could not afford endless debate. They needed someone who projected clarity, even if it was wrong. The confident leader gained followers, and survival often depended more on unity than on accuracy. Modern life has magnified this instinct. In the digital age, algorithms reward certainty. Social media platforms boost posts that are bold, emotional, and absolute. Nuance and humility do not go viral. A scientist saying, "We are 70% confident in this conclusion," is drowned out by an influencer shouting, "This is the truth, they don't want you to know." The platform rewards the influencer, not the scientist. This explains why conspiracy theories flourish online. They are not crafted for truth, they are crafted for confidence. Yet paradoxically, humility becomes a handicap in a noisy world. Think of Abraham Lincoln during his early debates with Stephen Douglas. Lincoln carefully reasoned, weighed evidence, and admitted when matters were complex. Douglas thundered with confidence and certainty. To many listeners, Douglas seemed the stronger man. It took years and the crucible of civil war for Lincoln's wisdom to be recognized. Or consider the corporate world today. Studies show that employees who speak with confidence, regardless of accuracy, are more likely to be promoted. Meanwhile, the quiet but competent worker is often overlooked because they hesitate, qualify their statements, or admit uncertainty. This creates a feedback loop. Organizations and societies reward the bold even if wrong and punish the cautious even if right. The Dunning-Kruger machine keeps spinning. When idiots win, everyone pays. The true cost of this machine is not just annoyance at arrogant people, it is systemic failure. When incompetent leaders rise, their mistakes ripple outward. Consider Venezuela's economic collapse under leaders who projected certainty in socialist policies while ignoring basic economic principles. Or more recently, how misinformation about public health during the pandemic spread faster than scientific advice, leaving societies polarized and vulnerable. The loud win, but the people lose. And yet, here is the uncomfortable truth. The Dunning-Kruger effect is not just about them, it is about us. We are all susceptible. Each of us carries blind spots. Each of us is tempted to project certainty we do not truly possess. Nietzsche warned against this when he wrote, "Every deep thinker is more afraid of being understood than of being misunderstood." For to be understood requires stripping away the false masks of confidence and exposing the raw uncertainty of truth. This is why the battle against the Dunning-Kruger machine is not merely external, it is internal. It requires self-mastery, the courage to admit ignorance, the discipline to learn, and the wisdom to know that doubt is not weakness, but strength. Thus, the anatomy of the Dunning-Kruger effect reveals both the machinery of society and the shadow within ourselves. But the story is not complete. In the next part, we must examine the incentives that supercharge this effect, the ways our institutions, markets, and cultures reward arrogance while punishing humility. Only then will we see the full design of the machine. If the Dunning-Kruger effect explains why fools feel certain, incentives explain why the world keeps rewarding them. The machine is not only psychological, it is systemic. Our institutions, economies, and technologies are wired in ways that magnify arrogance and suppress humility. Politics has always been a stage where confidence outshines competence. Plato warned of this when he spoke of demagogues, leaders who appeal to desires and fears rather than reason. In modern democracies, this incentive structure is more visible than ever. A candidate who admits complexity, who says, "The economy is a tangled system with trade-offs we must weigh carefully," is punished by the electorate. Another candidate who declares with fiery conviction, "I alone can fix it," is rewarded with applause and votes. Recent history offers examples across continents. In the US, the rise of politicians who thrive on bold declarations regardless of feasibility demonstrates how certainty captures headlines and loyalty. In Europe, Brexit campaigns triumphed not on careful analysis but on confident slogans, "Take back control." In Africa and Latin America, populist leaders surged to power promising sweeping change, only to discover that reality does not bend to slogans. The political marketplace rewards confidence because it offers comfort. Voters crave certainty in uncertain times. Truth is complex, but certainty is electable. The corporate world tells the same story. Consider Silicon Valley, where "fake it until you make it" is a celebrated mantra. Investors do not always fund the best product or the soundest idea. They fund the founder who sounds most certain. Elizabeth Holmes, once hailed as the next Steve Jobs, raised billions for Theranos on bold claims that her machines could revolutionize blood testing. She projected an aura of unshakable confidence, the black turtleneck, the deep voice, the unwavering stare. Investors did not demand evidence, they rewarded certainty. The machine crowned her a visionary until reality revealed her fraud. But Holmes was not unique. The startup ecosystem often incentivizes exaggeration. A founder who humbly admits "we are still testing this technology" risks being ignored. Another who confidently declares "we are changing the world" is invited onto magazine covers. In the corporate ladder, too, studies show that self-promotion and overconfidence predict promotions better than actual competence. The quiet worker who delivers results is overlooked. The bold talker who claims credit is elevated. The incentive is clear: project confidence, whether or not you deserve it. If politics and business magnify overconfidence, social media institutionalizes it. Platforms like Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram are not neutral tools, they are algorithms of arrogance. They reward posts that are bold, emotional, and absolute. Outrage spreads faster than nuance. Certainty, even false certainty, gets clicks, likes, and shares. Meanwhile, humility sounds like weakness. A scientist who carefully explains margins of error is buried under an influencer who screams, "They are lying to you." Think of the pandemic years. Misinformation often went viral not because it was true, but because it was packaged with bold certainty. Conspiracies about vaccines and viruses captured millions of minds, while the careful voices of epidemiologists struggled for oxygen. The incentive is not truth, the incentive is engagement. And engagement thrives on overconfidence. The Dunning-Kruger machine extends even into culture. Television, podcasts, and talk shows prefer the confident guest to the thoughtful one. A loud personality with outrageous takes is booked again and again because they drive ratings. The humble expert who qualifies their answers rarely becomes a star. Even comedy reveals this truth. Satirical shows often lampoon politicians, not for being wrong, but for being shamelessly certain in their wrongness. The very spectacle of misplaced confidence becomes entertainment. Idiots win not only in power, but in attention. And attention itself is a form of currency. What emerges is a pattern. Politics rewards slogans over solutions. Business rewards hype over honesty. Social media rewards outrage over nuance. Culture rewards performance over substance. The incentives align into a machine that crowns the confident incompetent as winners. And because humans adapt to incentives, more and more people learn that noise pays. Nietzsche warned of this when he described the herd instinct. Once society begins rewarding a trait, whether genuine or hollow, individuals rush to mimic it. If arrogance is rewarded, arrogance multiplies. If humility is punished, humility disappears. Perverse incentives are deadly. They turn human weakness into systemic collapse. In the financial world, traders who took reckless risks were rewarded with bonuses if things went well, but society paid the cost when things crashed. In media, sensationalism draws audiences, so outlets amplify extreme voices, leaving societies polarized and distrustful. In politics, rewarding certainty over truth leads to leaders who cannot adapt when reality proves them wrong. The machine is not just unfair, it is dangerous. It corrodes truth, punishes wisdom, and elevates the reckless. And yet, history also shows that incentives can be reshaped. In ancient Athens, the philosopher Solon reformed laws to reward civic responsibility over demagoguery. In post-war Japan, humility and collective discipline were rewarded, fueling decades of prosperity. Even in the modern corporate world, companies that value long-term thinking over short-term hype often outlast their rivals. The machine may favor overconfidence, but it is not eternal. Incentives can change, but before they do, individuals must learn how to survive within the machine without losing themselves. Thus, the anatomy of incentives reveals the structure of the Dunning-Kruger machine. It is not merely a psychological quirk, it is a social engine, a system where the loud are crowned, the wise are silenced, and the crowd mistakes noise for truth. But how then do we endure? How do we as individuals walk through this landscape without being crushed by it, and without becoming like it? For that, we must turn to survival and self-mastery. If fools keep winning, then wisdom must learn how to endure. The danger is not only external, that incompetent leaders rise, that arrogance drowns out truth, but also internal, that the wise grow bitter, cynical, or silent. Survival requires more than knowledge. It requires self-mastery. Marcus Aurelius lived in a Rome swarming with flatterers and fools. As emperor, he could not silence the noise, but he could master his response. In his meditations, he reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." For us, this means refusing to measure our worth by the victories of the loud. The Dunning-Kruger machine may elevate the arrogant, but their triumph does not diminish your truth. Anchoring in Stoicism means practicing detachment, learning to act with integrity, regardless of applause or neglect. When the loud are rewarded, remind yourself, their reward is not proof of truth, only proof of noise. Carl Jung taught that every person carries a shadow, the disowned parts of the self. The danger of the Dunning-Kruger world is that it tempts us to join it, to inflate ourselves, to project false confidence, to abandon humility in order to be heard. To resist, we must master the shadow. This means acknowledging our own hunger for recognition, our own envy of the arrogant, our own temptation to play their game. Only when we confront these impulses can we choose differently. As Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." In a world of noise, silence is power. Abraham Lincoln, mocked for his quiet demeanor, often waited in debates until his opponent had exhausted themselves. Then he spoke, calmly and with devastating precision. His restraint gave his words more weight. In business, leaders who avoid constant chatter often earn respect when they do speak, because their words are rare and considered. In personal life, refusing to argue with fools robs them of oxygen. Proverbs captures this wisdom bluntly. "Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him." Proverbs 26:4. Strategic silence turns humility into strength. No one survives the machine alone. History shows that when truth is under siege, communities become sanctuaries. The early Stoics gathered in small circles to practice virtue. Underground scholars in totalitarian regimes risked their lives to preserve knowledge when propaganda ruled. Today, this means curating circles of truth seekers, friends, mentors, communities, where humility is valued and learning is rewarded. If the mainstream machine crowns the loud, create alternative spaces where depth is honored. In the digital age, this might mean following voices that admit uncertainty rather than those who shout certainties. It might mean joining study groups, reading circles, or communities of practice where the slow work of wisdom is not mocked but celebrated. Philosophy is not meant to be theory alone, it is meant to shape life. When you see arrogance rewarded, resist the temptation to despair. Instead, double down on your own craft. Excellence, though often invisible in the short term, compounds. The quiet worker overlooked in meetings today may become the indispensable cornerstone tomorrow. The thinker mocked for nuance may be the one remembered after the noise has faded. Consider Galileo Galilei, silenced by the Inquisition for daring to challenge confident dogma. He died uncelebrated, but history crowned him victor. Or Alan Turing, ridiculed in life, now recognized as the father of modern computing. The machine may reward noise today, but truth has a longer arc. Excellence is the ultimate resistance. Jean-Paul Sartre spoke of the absurdity of existence, that meaning is not given but made. In a Dunning-Kruger world, it is easy to believe that the victories of the arrogant render life meaningless. But existential courage says otherwise. Meaning is forged in how you live, not in who society crowns. Even if idiots win the stage, you can win the inner theater, the battle for your own authenticity. As Sartre wrote, man is nothing else but what he makes of himself. And yet, let us not be naive. The machine is powerful. History is filled with the wreckage of societies that rewarded arrogance too long. Rome collapsed, empires crumbled, economies imploded, not because truth disappeared, but because confidence outran competence, until reality broke the spell. This is why self-mastery is not only personal survival, but civic duty. The world needs pockets of truth to endure the storm. Without them, the future belongs entirely to noise. So when you look around and ask, why do idiots keep winning? Remember, the machine is real. It rewards the loud, the reckless, the overconfident. But survival lies not in joining them, nor in despairing over them. Survival lies in mastering yourself. Anchor in Stoicism, confront your shadow, embrace silence, build communities, translate wisdom into action, practice existential courage, because in the end, idiots may win the moment, but wisdom, when lived, wins eternity. And now look at this. Throughout history, civilizations that worshipped arrogance fell, but those who cultivated resilience, truth, and humility endured. The noise will always be loud, but it will not last. The choice is yours, to be consumed by the machine or to walk through it with clarity, courage, and mastery.